My daughter is the family embarrassment, Mother declared to the crowded living room, her voice laced with contempt as she raised her champagne flute. I stood motionless in the entrance of my parents' home in Portland, Oregon, clutching the homemade dessert I'd brought for Christmas dinner. Every head swiveled toward me. Aunts, uncles, cousins I hadn't seen in years, their expressions a blend of sympathy and awkward discomfort. I forced my mouth into what I hoped looked like a smile. "I'd like you to meet someone," I said softly, my voice more composed than I felt inside. "My name is Rebecca, and I'm 35 years old. For as far back as I can recall, my mother has dedicated herself to reminding me, and anyone within earshot, that I'm a letdown. Single at 35, childless, running a coffee roastery instead of pursuing what she considered a respectable career. The catalog of my inadequacies, by her standards, stretched endlessly. That Christmas gathering was meant to be different. I'd promised myself it would be the final time I allowed her to humiliate me before the entire family. I had something significant to share, information that would shift everything. But standing there watching her smirk at me over her glass, I understood she had absolutely no idea what awaited her. The problems began years earlier, likely when I crossed the threshold of 30 without a ring on my finger. Mother had always been judgmental, but something transformed at that point. At every family occasion, she discovered fresh angles to highlight my deficiencies. At my cousin's baby shower, she mentioned to the host that at least her daughter understood her biological clock. At Thanksgiving 3 years back, she asked pointedly whether I planned to become one of those bitter old women who collected rescue animals. I didn't even own pets. My younger sister Amanda had perpetually been the favored one. She married at 24 to an orthodontist named Marcus, produced 3 children before turning 32, and currently resided in an immaculate home in the suburbs with a white picket fence. Mother never overlooked an opportunity to draw comparisons between us, typically with me standing within earshot. "Amanda understands how to keep a man satisfied," she'd announce. "That's why she enjoys such a wonderful family life." I attempted arguing initially, tried justifying my decisions, but Mother possessed a talent for distorting everything I expressed, transforming me into someone who sounded defensive and pitiable. Eventually, I learned to remain silent, to smile and nod, and mentally calculate the minutes until I could escape. The coffee roastery where I worked wasn't prestigious, but I cherished it. I'd begun there 12 years ago as a part-time barista while determining my life's direction. As it happened, I wanted to roast coffee. Exceptional coffee. The variety that made customers pause and savor that first sip with closed eyes. My mentor, Patricia, had trained me in everything she knew. When she retired 6 years ago, she assisted me in purchasing the business from her. Mother never recognized that I owned the roastery. In her perception, I was merely working at some coffee place. She never inquired about my professional life, never visited the roastery, never displayed interest in anything I accomplished unless it provided ammunition to embarrass me before relatives. This Christmas was supposed to differ because of Michael. I'd encountered him 9 months earlier when he entered the roastery, searching for a particular Ethiopian blend his grandfather used to enjoy. He was in town for business conferences, lodging at a boutique hotel in the Pearl District. We conversed for 30 minutes about coffee origins and roasting techniques, and he returned the following day and the day thereafter. Michael resided in Boston but traveled extensively for his work. He was reserved, contemplative, and appeared authentically curious about my thoughts and opinions. We initiated a long-distance relationship which presented challenges, but somehow functioned. He made considerable efforts to visit Portland whenever feasible, and I flew eastward to see him on 3 occasions. I hadn't informed my family about him. Partially, I wanted to shield what we'd built from Mother's unavoidable criticism. Partially, I was terrified that if I introduced him to my family, she would somehow destroy it. But Michael insisted on meeting them, stated he wanted full inclusion in my life. Consequently, I'd consented to bringing him to Christmas dinner. The strategy was straightforward. I would arrive initially to assist with preparations, and he'd appear an hour afterward. I wanted to assess the atmosphere, ensure Mother was in a tolerable disposition before introducing him. That strategy disintegrated the instant I walked through the door and heard Mother already performing for the living room, narrating stories about my failures to anyone willing to listen. "She's 35 and perpetually alone," Mother was announcing as I entered the room. "Can you fathom it? I genuinely don't understand where I failed with that one." My Aunt Catherine produced a sympathetic murmur. "Well, some women simply aren't designed for marriage, I suppose." "It's beyond that," Mother continued. "It's that she possesses no ambition, no determination. She operates a coffee shop, for goodness sake. What sort of man desires a woman who constantly smells like espresso grounds?" Amanda, positioned on the sofa with her flawless appearance and designer outfit, remained silent. She never defended me, but she also never participated in Mother's verbal assaults. She simply existed in her bubble of perfection while I absorbed the blows. That's when I entered the room carrying my dessert, and Mother elected to make her dramatic declaration about me being the family embarrassment. The statement lingered in the atmosphere like something toxic. I felt my face burning hot, sensed everyone's discomfort and their reluctance to establish eye contact with me. But I had Michael, and I had a strategy. Memories of previous Christmas gatherings flooded my consciousness as I stood there holding that dessert. There was the year Mother purchased Amanda an expensive diamond bracelet and presented me with a book titled Living, Your Best Life Alone. There was the Christmas she inquired loudly whether I'd considered fertility preservation before time ran out. Every holiday delivered fresh humiliation, another reminder that I wasn't measuring up to her standards. I'd invested 35 years attempting to secure her approval. I excelled academically, maintained excellent grades, avoided trouble. But none of it mattered because I wasn't Amanda. I wasn't married with children. I wasn't following the precise trajectory Mother had designed for me. The roastery became my refuge. Patricia, my former employer and guide, had functioned more as a mother figure than my actual mother ever had. When she decided to retire, she arranged a meeting in the back office and informed me she wanted me to acquire the business. "You possess a genuine gift," she said, "and I refuse to watch you squander it because you're too frightened to trust yourself." I was petrified. Securing a business loan, becoming an entrepreneur, it seemed impossible. But Patricia believed in me, and somehow that enabled me to believe in myself. I collaborated with a community bank, obtained loan approval, and purchased the roastery. That occurred 6 years ago, and every year since had exceeded the previous one. The business had grown substantially. We now supplied coffee to several local restaurants and had won regional awards for our roasting quality. Mother never attended the reopening celebration. She never questioned how the business was performing. She never acknowledged that I'd accomplished something challenging and succeeded at it. To her, I remained merely working at a coffee shop, nothing more substantial. Michael transformed everything. When he initially walked into the roastery that afternoon in March, I nearly overlooked him. It was the morning rush period, and I was covered in coffee grounds, frantically attempting to manage orders. He waited patiently in line, and when he reached the counter, he requested a specific Ethiopian Yirgacheffe roast. "My grandfather used to serve it," he explained. "I've been searching for something comparable for years." I didn't possess exactly what he wanted, but I offered to create a custom roast for him. He agreed immediately and returned 3 days later for pickup. When he tasted it, he closed his eyes and smiled genuinely. "This is it," he said. "This is precisely what I remember." We began conversing after that. He shared stories about his grandfather, about growing up in New England, about how food and beverage memories constituted his strongest recollections. I told him about learning the coffee business, about the satisfaction of creating something with my own expertise and passion. He returned daily throughout his trip, sometimes merely for espresso, sometimes to sample whatever new blend I'd developed. On his final day in Portland, he requested my contact information. I provided it, not genuinely anticipating anything significant, but he called that identical evening, and we talked for 3 hours. He called again the subsequent night, and the night following that. Our relationship developed gradually, carefully. He described his work, something in financial technology, though he remained modest about specifics. I discovered he traveled constantly, that he was headquartered in Boston but spent more time in hotels than at home. He seemed isolated despite his professional success, and I comprehended that sensation completely. When he finally revealed his actual occupation, I laughed, assuming he was joking. But he displayed articles on his phone, showed me photographs of himself at industry summits, demonstrated he was exactly who he claimed to be. Michael was the founder and CEO of a major fintech company, the type of organization featured in Fortune magazine. "Why didn't you mention this sooner?" I asked. "Because I wanted you to know me first," he said. "Not what I've built or my net worth. Just me." I appreciated that more than he realized. I'd spent my entire existence being evaluated for what I wasn't. Michael saw me for who I was and appeared to genuinely value that person. We made our relationship function despite the distance. He flew to Portland whenever possible, frequently just for weekends. I visited Boston 3 times, marveling at his modern apartment overlooking the harbor. We communicated nightly, shared our daily experiences, constructed something authentic. But I kept him separated from my family. I couldn't tolerate the thought of Mother destroying him the way she destroyed everything else in my life. What if she said something so terrible that he began perceiving me differently? What if her relentless criticism finally exposed some truth about me that would drive him away? Michael didn't comprehend my hesitation. He'd grown up in a nurturing, encouraging family. His parents championed his aspirations, celebrated his achievements. The concept of a mother who actively worked to sabotage her daughter's happiness was incomprehensible to him. "I want to meet them," he said one evening in October. "I want inclusion in your complete life, not just the segments you show me." I attempted to explain what my family was like, particularly Mother. I told him about the constant criticism, the comparisons to Amanda, the public humiliations. He listened attentively, then took my hand. "Let me be there with you," he said. "You shouldn't have to confront that alone." So I agreed to bring him to Christmas dinner. I planned meticulously. I would arrive early to assist with preparations, and he'd arrive later after everyone had settled. That way, I could evaluate Mother's disposition, perhaps even warn him if circumstances were particularly hostile. The plan collapsed the moment I walked into the house and heard Mother already dismantling me before the entire family. Standing there with that dessert in my hands, listening to my mother label me the family embarrassment, I felt something shift internally. It wasn't precisely anger, though that certainly existed. It was more like clarity, a sudden, sharp comprehension that this pattern had to terminate. I'd texted Michael as soon as I arrived, instructing him to delay his entrance. Now I retrieved my phone and sent another message. "Come now. It's time." Mother was still performing, seemingly energized by her audience. "I don't understand what I'm supposed to tell people," she continued. "When they inquire about my daughters, I can boast about Amanda endlessly. But Rebecca? What am I supposed to say about a 35-year-old coffee roaster with no prospects?" My Aunt Catherine shifted uncomfortably. "Well, some people develop later in life." "Later?" Mother laughed sharply. "Catherine, she's not going to develop. This is it. This is all she'll ever amount to," Amanda finally interjected, her voice soft. "Mom, perhaps we should discuss something else." "Why?" "Because the truth is uncomfortable?" Mother turned to look at me directly for the first time. Perhaps if someone had been honest with her years ago, she would have made superior choices. But no, everyone wanted to be supportive and encouraging. Look where that led us. I set the dessert down on the entry table. My hands were trembling, but not from fear or embarrassment. I was finished being frightened of her. "You're correct," I said, and the room fell silent. Mother looked startled. I rarely responded to her attacks. I did make choices. I chose to build a business from nothing. I chose to work 18-hour days to ensure that business succeeded. I chose to create something I'm genuinely proud of, even though you've never once acknowledged it. Mother's expression hardened. "Don't be theatrical. You work at a coffee shop. I own the roastery, I corrected. I have for 6 years, but you've never cared enough to inquire about my life, so you wouldn't know that. Owning a coffee shop isn't exactly what? Impressive? Successful? Sufficient for you? I could feel everyone's attention on me, but for once I didn't care. Nothing I accomplish will ever be adequate for you because I'm not Amanda. I don't possess the right type of marriage or the right type of life. I'm simply me, and that's never been acceptable to you. The doorbell rang, cutting through the tension. Mother looked annoyed at the interruption. Who else is coming? Everyone's already here. I walked to the door, my heart pounding intensely. When I opened it, Michael stood there in a perfectly tailored suit, holding a bottle of premium wine. He looked calm, confident, and completely unaffected by the chaos he was about to enter. "Hi," he said softly. "Just for me. You okay?" I nodded, taking his hand. "I am now." We walked back into the living room together. Mother was still standing in the center of the room, her face displaying irritation at having her performance interrupted. Amanda had relocated to the sofa, looking concerned. The rest of the family seemed frozen, uncertain what was transpiring. "Everyone," I said, my voice stronger now. "I'd like you to meet someone. This is Michael." He smiled warmly at the room, completely at ease. "It's wonderful to finally meet Rebecca's family. I've heard so much about all of you." Mother's eyes narrowed as she assessed him. I could observe her processing the expensive suit, the confident posture, the way he carried himself. She was attempting to determine what angle to employ, how to diminish him the way she diminished everything else in my life. "And what do you do, Michael?" she asked, her tone suggesting she anticipated something disappointing. "I work in financial technology," he said simply. "Financial technology?" Mother repeated as if the phrase was distasteful. "So you're one of those startup people?" "In a sense," Michael said, still smiling. "I founded a company about 14 years ago. We develop payment processing solutions for healthcare systems. It's been quite successful." My Uncle Richard, who had been quiet until now, suddenly sat up straighter. "Wait, what company?" Michael named it, and I watched Uncle Richard's face transform. He was a hospital CFO, and apparently he knew exactly what Michael's company did. "You're joking," Uncle Richard said. "We implemented your software at the hospital last year. It's revolutionary. You've saved healthcare systems billions in processing costs and reduced fraud significantly." Mother's smile had frozen on her face. She looked between Michael and Uncle Richard, attempting to comprehend what was happening. Amanda was staring at Michael with wide eyes, and I could observe her retrieving her phone under the table, probably to search for him online. "Well, that's nice," Mother said, her voice tight. "How did you two meet?" "At Rebecca's roastery," Michael said, and his smile widened. "I tried her Ethiopian blend and fell in love, with the coffee first, then with her." "Her roastery," Mother said flatly. "The business she owns, yes. It's an incredible operation. The way she's expanded it over the past 6 years, the customer loyalty she's built, the quality of her products, it's genuinely impressive." He looked at me with authentic warmth. "She's brilliant at what she does." I watched something crumble in Mother's expression. It wasn't remorse or regret. She wasn't capable of that. It was the realization that her favorite weapon, my supposed failure, was no longer available to her. I wasn't single and desperate. I wasn't unsuccessful. I wasn't the disappointment she'd spent years telling everyone I was. Amanda had discovered something on her phone. She looked up at me, then at Michael, her mouth slightly open. "He's worth over 400 million, she whispered to Mother, though everyone heard it. The room fell completely silent. Mother's face cycled through a series of expressions: shock, disbelief, then something that resembled pain. But it wasn't the pain of regret or shame. It was the pain of losing control, of watching her carefully constructed narrative disintegrate before everyone. 400 million, she repeated, her voice strained. She turned to me, and for the first time in years, I saw uncertainty in her eyes. "Rebecca, why didn't you tell us?" "Tell you what?" I asked, keeping my voice level. "That I was seeing someone?" You've never been interested in my life before. Why would this be different? That's not fair, Mother said, but there was no conviction in her words. She was already pivoting, I could see it happening. She was searching for a way to make this about her, to twist it so she emerged looking like the victim or the hero. We've always cared about you. Michael squeezed my hand gently. He'd been watching the exchange with interest, and I could tell he was beginning to understand what I'd been dealing with all these years. Amanda was still staring at her phone, scrolling through articles. He was featured in Bloomberg, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. And the Wall Street Journal. She looked up at Mother. How did we not know about this? Because Rebecca didn't tell us, Mother said quickly, regaining some of her composure. She turned to the rest of the family with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. You know how private she can be, always keeping secrets. I felt something inside me break. Private? Mom, I've been trying to share my life with you for 35 years, and you've spent every single one of those years telling me it wasn't good enough. I didn't tell you about Michael because I knew you'd find some way to ruin it. That's ridiculous, Mother said. But she was looking at Michael now, not me. Her entire demeanor had changed. The contempt was gone, replaced by something almost obsequious. Michael, please don't think poorly of our family. Rebecca can be so oversensitive sometimes. We've always supported her, haven't we? She looked around the room for confirmation. My Aunt Catherine looked uncomfortable. Uncle Richard was focused on his drink. Amanda was still absorbed in her phone. Nobody spoke up to agree with Mother, and I saw her panic slightly at the lack of support. Michael's voice was polite, but cool when he responded. Actually, from what Rebecca has told me, you've spent years criticizing her choices and diminishing her accomplishments. She mentioned that you called her an embarrassment about 5 minutes before I arrived. Mother's face flushed. I was just joking. We joke in this family, don't we? She looked at me desperately. Rebecca knows I don't mean anything by it. But you do mean it, I said quietly. You've meant every word, every comparison to Amanda, every comment about my age or my career or my life. You've spent years trying to make me feel worthless. I was trying to motivate you, Mother protested, to push you to be better. Better than what? Better than myself? I could feel my voice rising. I built a successful business. I created something meaningful. But you never saw that because you were too busy being disappointed that I wasn't living the exact life you wanted me to live. Amanda finally looked up from her phone. Rebecca, I had no idea you felt this way. How could you know? I turned to my sister. You were too busy being perfect. And I'm not blaming you for that. You found someone you love. You have a family. You're happy. That's wonderful. But Mom used your life as a weapon against me. And you never once told her to stop. Amanda looked stricken. I thought it was just how she was. You didn't think it hurt? I finished for her. Of course it hurt. But nobody cared enough to stop it. Mother was recovering now, finding her footing again. This is typical, she said, her voice gaining strength. I try to help, to guide, and suddenly I'm the villain. Maybe if you had listened to me years ago, you wouldn't have wasted so much time at that coffee shop. Michael's hand tightened on mine, the roastery that Rebecca built into a thriving business. The one where we met because her reputation for quality brought me through the door. That roastery. I'm sure it's nice, Mother said dismissively. But let's be honest. If she had pursued a real career... She has a real career, Michael interrupted, his voice still polite but with an edge now. She owns a business that employs 15 people. She's expanded twice in 6 years. She's built relationships with suppliers and customers that most business owners would envy. She's won regional and state awards for her roasting. What about that isn't real? Mother opened her mouth, closed it, then tried again. I just think she could have done more with her potential. You mean she could have done what you wanted her to do, Michael said. Found a husband by 30, had kids, lived in the suburbs like your other daughter. But Rebecca chose her own path, and it's a remarkable one. I had never had someone defend me like this. Michael wasn't being aggressive or mean. He was simply stating facts, pushing back against Mother's narrative with quiet certainty. And I could see it was driving her crazy. "Michael, you seem like a wonderful man," Mother said, switching tactics again. "And I'm so happy that you and Rebecca found each other. Maybe now she'll finally settle down, start a family. It's not too late." "Mom," I said, my voice sharp. "Stop." "What?" "I'm just saying that now that you have someone like Michael, you can finally have the life you should have had years ago. You can sell that roastery, be a proper wife." "I'm not selling anything," I said. "And I'm not changing my life to fit your vision of what it should be. I'm happy with who I am and what I've built." Mother laughed, but it sounded forced. "Oh, Rebecca, don't be silly. Once you're married to someone like Michael, you won't need to work. You can finally relax, have babies, be a real woman." The room erupted. Uncle Richard looked horrified. Aunt Catherine actually gasped. Amanda said, "Mom," in a shocked voice. But it was Michael who spoke, his voice colder than I'd ever heard it. "Mrs. Thompson," he said, using my last name, not his. "Rebecca is already a real woman, a successful, talented, remarkable woman. And I fell in love with her exactly as she is. If you can't see that, if you can't appreciate your own daughter's worth, then that's your failure, not hers." Mother stared at him, her face pale. Nobody had ever spoken to her like that. She was accustomed to being the one in control, the one who decided what was acceptable and what wasn't. But Michael had just publicly called her out, and there was no way for her to spin it. "I think we should leave," Mother said suddenly, looking at my father, who had been silent through all of this. "We clearly aren't welcome here." "This is your house," I pointed out. "Then maybe you should leave," Mother snapped, her composure finally breaking completely. "You and your billionaire boyfriend can go back to your coffee shop and your little life." "Gladly," I said. I looked at Michael. "Let's go." We were almost to the door when Amanda called out, "Rebecca, wait." I turned to see my sister standing up, her face conflicted. She looked at Mother, then back at me. "I'm sorry," she said. "I should have said something years ago. I should have defended you." "But you didn't," I said simply. "It wasn't meant to be cruel, just honest." "I know." Amanda's eyes were starting to tear up. "I thought if I stayed quiet, if I didn't rock the boat, everyone would be okay. But I was wrong. And I'm sorry." Mother made a dismissive sound. "Amanda, don't apologize. You have nothing to be sorry for. Rebecca is just being dramatic as usual." "No, Mom," Amanda said, surprising everyone. "She's not being dramatic. You've been awful to her for years, and I let it happen because it was easier than standing up to you." Mother's face went red. "How dare you speak to me that way after everything I've done for you, for this family?" "You've done a lot for me," Amanda agreed. "But you've been cruel to Rebecca, and it needs to stop." "I won't stand here and be attacked by my own children," Mother said, her voice shaking with anger. "First, Rebecca brings this stranger into our home and turns everyone against me, and now you're joining her." "This is unbelievable," Michael spoke again, his voice measured. "I'm not a stranger trying to turn anyone against you. I'm simply someone who loves your daughter and can see clearly what you've been doing to her. And I think deep down, everyone in this room can see it too." I looked around and saw that he was right. Aunt Catherine was nodding slightly. Uncle Richard couldn't meet Mother's eyes. Even my father, who never got involved in conflicts, looked troubled. "You're all insane," Mother said. "I've been a good mother, a devoted mother. I've sacrificed everything for my family." "You've been controlling," I said. "There's a difference. You didn't sacrifice for us. You used us to make yourself feel important. And when I didn't follow your script, you punished me for it." "That's not true," Mother insisted. But there was desperation in her voice now. She was losing the room, losing the audience that had always validated her behavior. "Amanda, tell them. Tell them how much I've done for you." Amanda looked uncomfortable. "You have been there for me, Mom, but Rebecca's right. You've treated her differently, and it's not okay." Mother turned on her. "You ungrateful child. After everything, the wedding I paid for, the down payment on your house, all the childcare, which you held over my head every time I didn't do exactly what you wanted," Amanda said quietly. "I love you, Mom, but you're not always easy to love." The room was silent. Mother looked around wildly, seeking support but finding none. Everyone was looking at her with varying degrees of discomfort or pity. She had built her identity on being the matriarch, the one everyone deferred to. And now that foundation was cracking. "Fine," she said finally, her voice brittle. "Leave all of you. See if I care. I don't need any of you." Nobody moved. We all stood there, frozen in the awkwardness of the moment. Then my father spoke for the first time. "Victoria," he said quietly, "maybe we should talk about this. Really talk about it. Talk about what?" Mother snapped. "About how our daughters are turning on us? About how some tech millionaire shows up and suddenly I'm the villain? About how you've treated Rebecca," Dad said. "Because she's right. You have been cruel to her." Mother stared at him like he'd slapped her. "You're taking her side?" "I'm not taking sides," Dad said. "I'm just acknowledging the truth. And the truth is that you've been unfair to Rebecca for a long time." "I can't believe this," Mother said. "I can't believe my own family is ganging up on me." "We're not ganging up on you," I said, and I was surprised to find I felt sorry for her in that moment. Not enough to take back what I'd said, but enough to soften my voice slightly. "We're just asking you to see how you've hurt me." "That's all? Hurt you?" Mother's voice rose again. "I pushed you to be better. That's what mothers do." "No, Mom. You tore me down." "There's a difference between pushing someone to grow and making them feel worthless." Mother shook her head violently. "I never made you feel worthless. You're just too sensitive." "You always have been." Michael stepped forward slightly. "Can I ask you something, Mrs. Thompson? Do you even know what Rebecca's roastery is called?" Mother blinked. "What?" "Of course I—" She stopped, her face going blank. "What's it called?" Michael pressed gently. The silence stretched out. Mother's mouth opened, closed. She looked at me, then away. "I don't see what that has to do with anything." "You don't know," Michael said, and it wasn't a question. "Your daughter has owned a business for 6 years and you don't even know its name." "I'm busy," Mother said defensively. "I can't remember every little detail." "It's not a little detail," I said. "It's my life. It's what I do every day. It's what I'm proud of. And you've never cared enough to even ask what it's called." "That's not fair," Mother protested weakly. "I've had a lot going on." "The roastery is called Morning Star," Michael said. "She chose that name because she wanted to symbolize hope and new beginnings. She opens at 4:30 every morning to begin the roasting process. She knows most of her regular customers by name. She's built something real and meaningful, and you've never acknowledged it." Mother's face was pale now. She looked around the room again, but this time I saw something different in her expression. Not anger or defensiveness, fear. She was afraid of losing control, afraid of being seen as the person she actually was instead of the person she pretended to be. "I think we should go," I said to Michael. "There's nothing more to say here." We turned to leave, and this time Amanda didn't stop us. But as we reached the door, Mother called out one more time. "Rebecca!" I paused but didn't turn around. "You'll regret this," she said, and her voice was cold. "You think you're better than us now because of him, but money doesn't change who you are. You'll always be the embarrassment no matter who you're with." I turned around slowly. Michael tensed beside me, but I put my hand on his arm. This was my moment. "You're wrong," I said calmly. "I'm not an embarrassment. I never was. The only person embarrassed here is you. Embarrassed that you can't control me anymore. Embarrassed that your narrative about my failure doesn't work when I'm actually successful. That's your problem, Mom, not mine." I didn't wait for her response. Michael and I walked out into the cold December evening, the door closing behind us with a definitive click. The moment we stepped off the porch, I felt lighter, like I'd been carrying a weight I didn't even realize was there. Michael pulled me close. "You okay?" "I'm better than okay," I said, and I meant it. "I'm free." We got into his rental car and he started driving. I assumed he was taking me back to my apartment, but instead he drove to the waterfront. Portland was beautiful at night, especially in winter. The lights from the city reflected off the Willamette River, creating a peaceful scene that was exactly what I needed. "Want to talk about it?" Michael asked after we'd been sitting in comfortable silence for a few minutes. I don't know what to say, I admitted. Part of me feels guilty for confronting her like that. But mostly I just feel relieved. You shouldn't feel guilty, Michael said. She needed to hear it. They all needed to hear it. Did you see her face when you asked about the roastery's name? I couldn't help but laugh a little. She really had no idea. That told me everything I needed to know about her, Michael said. She doesn't know you at all, Rebecca. She's been so busy trying to make you into what she wanted that she never bothered to see who you actually are. I leaned my head against his shoulder. Thank you for coming tonight. For defending me. I've never had anyone do that before. You shouldn't have to defend yourself against your own mother, Michael said. That's not normal. That's not love. We sat there for a while longer, watching the lights on the water. My phone buzzed several times. Texts from Amanda, from Aunt Catherine, even one from Uncle Richard. I didn't look at them yet. I needed this moment of peace. Finally, Michael spoke again. What do you want to do now? What do you mean? I mean about your family. About your mother. Do you want to try to fix this? Or are you done? I thought about it. A week ago, even a day ago, I might have said I wanted to fix it. That I wanted Mother to apologize, to change, to become the mother I always wished she could be. But sitting there in the car, feeling the weight of 35 years of criticism finally lift off my shoulders, I realized something. I'm done, I said. I'm done trying to earn her love. I'm done making excuses for her behavior. I'm done letting her make me feel small. Are you sure? Michael asked gently. Because once you make that choice, I'm sure, I interrupted. I've spent my whole life trying to be enough for her, and it was never going to work because the problem was never with me. It was with her. And I can't fix that. Michael kissed the top of my head. Then I support you. Whatever you decide, I'm with you. The days that followed brought unexpected developments. Mother, true to form, began her campaign of rewriting history. She told anyone who would listen that I had been manipulated, that Michael had isolated me from my family, that she needed to save me from making a terrible mistake. Amanda called me 3 days after Christmas, her voice urgent. Rebecca, Mom's planning something. She's organizing what she's calling a family intervention. She's contacted everyone, aunts, uncles, cousins, telling them you're in a controlling relationship and that Michael has brainwashed you. I felt fury surge through me. She's doing what? It gets worse. She's saying that if everyone comes together and confronts you, you'll see the truth. She's scheduled it for this Sunday at the house. I can't believe this, I said, though part of me absolutely could believe it. This was exactly the kind of manipulation Mother would employ, positioning herself as the hero, me as the victim who needed rescuing, while completely ignoring the actual issues. What are you going to do? Amanda asked. I'm going to end this, I said, once and for all. I called Michael immediately and explained the situation. His response was instant. Let's go. Let's attend this intervention and set the record straight. Michael, it's going to be ugly. I don't care. She's crossed a line. Telling people you're being abused, that's not just insulting to you, it's insulting to people who actually are in abusive situations. He was absolutely right. Mother had gone too far. It was one thing to criticize me privately or even before family, but spreading lies about Michael, painting him as an abuser to manipulate the family, that was something else entirely. I spent the rest of the week preparing. I gathered evidence, bank statements from the roastery showing its growth and success, the loan documents from when I purchased it, photos of awards the business had won, articles from local papers featuring Morning Star. I also reached out to several family members privately, people like Uncle Richard and Aunt Catherine who had witnessed Mother's behavior firsthand. By the time Sunday arrived, I was ready. Michael flew in Saturday night, and we drove to my parents' house together. The driveway was packed with cars. Mother had really mobilized everyone. Ready? Michael asked as we sat in the car. Ready, I said. We walked to the door together. I didn't bother knocking, just walked right in. The living room was crowded with people. They all turned to look at us, their expressions ranging from concern to curiosity to embarrassment. And there, Standing in the center of it all like a conductor before an orchestra was Mother. "Rebecca," she said, her voice dripping with false concern. "Thank goodness you're here. We need to talk about what's happening to you." I looked around the room, making eye contact with each person. Then I smiled. "Yes, Mom. Let's talk about what's been happening. Let's talk about all of it." Mother faltered slightly at my tone, but recovered quickly. "Everyone here cares about you, Rebecca. We're worried about your relationship with this man." "This man has a name," Michael said calmly. "I'm Michael, in case anyone's forgotten." "Of course," Mother said, though she didn't look at him. "Michael, we're not attacking you. We're just concerned about how quickly this relationship has progressed and how Rebecca has cut herself off from her family." "I haven't cut myself off from anyone," I said. "I set a boundary. There's a difference." Uncle Richard cleared his throat. "Rebecca, your mother says you've been acting strangely, that you've changed." "I have changed," I agreed. "I've stopped accepting abuse. Is that what concerns everyone?" There was uncomfortable shifting in the room. Aunt Catherine spoke up. "Victoria, maybe we should—" "Catherine, please," Mother interrupted. "Let me handle this." She turned back to me, her expression shifting to something that might have passed for maternal concern. "Sweetheart, I know you think I've been hard on you, but everything I've done has been out of love. And now I'm afraid that Michael has taken advantage of your vulnerability." "My vulnerability?" I repeated. "You mean the vulnerability you created by spending 35 years telling me I was worthless?" "That's not what I did," Mother protested, looking around for support. "I pushed you to be better. That's what parents do." I pulled out my phone and opened a voice recording app. "I've been recording our conversations for the past 2 years, I said. "Would you like me to play some of them so everyone can hear exactly what kind of pushing you did?" Mother's face went white. "You recorded me?" "I did. I wanted proof of what was happening because I knew you'd deny it, just like you're doing now." I looked around the room. At Thanksgiving 2 years ago, Mom told me I was pathetic for not having children. At Easter last year, she said no decent man would want me because I was too old and set in my ways. At my birthday dinner, she told me I was wasting my life and would die alone and forgotten. "That's taken out of context," Mother said desperately. "Is it?" I pulled out a small speaker I'd brought and connected my phone. "Let's listen, shall we?" I played a clip from Thanksgiving. Mother's voice came through clearly. "Look at Amanda with her beautiful family. That's what a woman is supposed to look like at 35. Not alone and desperate like you, Rebecca. You're an embarrassment." The room was silent. I played another clip, then another. With each one, Mother looked smaller, more cornered. Family members who had come expecting to stage an intervention were now looking at her with dawning horror. "Stop it," Mother finally said, her voice shaking. "Stop playing those. Why?" I asked. "Because it's embarrassing?" "Because everyone can now hear what I've been dealing with for years. Because your narrative about me being manipulated by Michael falls apart when they hear you calling me a failure, an embarrassment, pathetic." "I was frustrated," Mother said. "I was trying to help you." "You were being cruel," I said flatly. "And you were doing it deliberately. You enjoyed it. You enjoyed making me feel small because it made you feel powerful." Amanda stood up from where she'd been sitting quietly. "She's right, Mom. I've heard you say worse things when it was just us. You've been horrible to Rebecca." "Amanda, don't you turn on me too," Mother said, panic creeping into her voice. "I'm not turning on you," Amanda said. "I'm just finally admitting the truth. You've been abusive to Rebecca for years and we all let it happen." Uncle Richard spoke up. "Victoria, I think we need to have an honest conversation here. Not about Rebecca's relationship, but about your behavior." Mother looked around wildly, seeking an ally, but found none. Even Dad was looking at her with an expression I'd never seen before: disappointment. "This is ridiculous," Mother said, her voice rising. "I call a family meeting to help my daughter, and you all turn it into an attack on me. I'm the victim here." "No, Mom," I said quietly. "You're not the victim. You never were. You were the perpetrator. And the only reason we're all here is because you couldn't handle the fact that I finally stood up to you." Michael stepped forward. Mrs. Thompson, I need to say something. I love your daughter. I love her strength, her kindness, her talent, her passion for her craft. I love who she is exactly as she is. And nothing you say or do will change that. But I will not stand by while you spread lies about our relationship to manipulate your family. I wasn't, Mother started, but Aunt Catherine cut her off. Victoria, enough. We've all heard the recordings. We've all seen how you treat Rebecca. This needs to stop. Mother looked around the room one more time, and I saw the moment she realized she'd lost. Not just this battle, but the war. She'd overplayed her hand, and everyone could see her for what she really was. Fine, she said, her voice cold. If that's how you all feel, then leave. All of you. I don't need any of you. Actually, Mom, I said, we're already gone. Some of us left a long time ago. You just didn't notice. Ethan and I turned and walked out. This time, several people followed us. Amanda, Aunt Catherine, Uncle Richard, a few cousins. We stood in the driveway together, nobody quite sure what to say. Finally, Uncle Richard spoke. I'm sorry, Rebecca. For all of it. Thank you, I said simply. In the months that followed, Mother never apologized. She told anyone who would listen that I had turned the family against her, that I was cruel and ungrateful. But her audience grew smaller as more people realized the truth. Dad eventually moved into his own apartment, tired of her bitterness and blame. Amanda filed for divorce from Marcus. She'd discovered he'd been having an affair for 2 years, but she'd stayed silent because leaving would have meant admitting her perfect life was a facade. Several family members stopped speaking to Mother entirely, unwilling to tolerate her manipulation anymore. Mother ended up exactly where she'd always feared, alone. Not because she stood up for herself or pursued her own happiness, but because she'd driven everyone away through years of cruelty masked as concern. She'd built her identity on control and criticism, and when those tools no longer worked, she had nothing left. As for me, I married Michael in a small ceremony 8 months later, surrounded by the people who actually loved and supported us. The roastery continued to thrive. We opened a second location and began shipping our roasts nationally. I never doubted my choices again. Looking back on that Christmas dinner, I realized the greatest victory wasn't in exposing Mother or proving my success. It was in finally choosing myself, in walking away from her approval and building a life I was genuinely proud of. She'd spent 35 years trying to make me feel worthless. But in the end, I discovered my worth had never depended on her validation at all. It had always been there, waiting for me to recognize it myself. The business I built, the relationships I nurtured, the life I created, these weren't reactions to her criticism. They were expressions of who I truly was, once I stopped trying to become who she wanted me to be. And that realization was worth more than any apology she could have offered.